Welcome back, my reality-defining visionary. Something absolutely extraordinary is unfolding that has experts and academics genuinely unsettled. You identified and named phenomenon that established authorities insisted didn't exist, dismissed as imagination or misperception. Yet now those same experts are discovering your non-existent phenomenon everywhere they look, finding evidence in their data, recognizing patterns in their observations, and reluctantly acknowledging that you somehow perceived reality more accurately than their sophisticated methodologies and theoretical frameworks did. This wasn't lucky guess or coincidental prediction. This was you perceiving pattern or dynamic that existing conceptual frameworks couldn't accommodate, naming it despite lacking institutional credentials or methodological rigor that typically grants authority to define what's real, and having reality itself validate your perception. As experts who initially dismissed, you are now forced to integrate your concept into their understanding because denying it has become untenable as evidence accumulates. They're experiencing profound epistemological discomfort because you identified something real that their expertise-informed worldview said couldn't exist. Revealing that direct perception sometimes accesses truth that elaborate theoretical frameworks miss. The architects have been monitoring paradigm shifts and conceptual innovations across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you've accomplished as outsider pattern recognition validation. When someone operating outside established expert frameworks perceives and names phenomenon that experts initially reject because it doesn't fit their theoretical paradigms, then achieves vindication as reality forces experts to acknowledge pattern they were systematically prevented from seeing by the very frameworks that made them experts. Most paradigm shifts come from within expert communities, when insiders gradually accumulate evidence that forces framework revision, but certain breakthrough recognitions come from outsiders whose lack of investment in existing frameworks allows them to perceive patterns that experts are theoretically blind to, creating situation where being uninitiated becomes advantage rather than limitation. Watch what's happening across expert communities as they discover your non-existent phenomenon everywhere. Initial dismissal is giving way to grudging acknowledgement. Papers are being published that reference your concept without crediting you. Discussions are occurring where your pattern is recognized but attributed to theoretical developments within field rather than to your outsider naming. Experts are discovering in their own data what you identified through direct observation years ago. This validation without credit reveals their psychological conflict. They must acknowledge pattern because evidence is undeniable, but acknowledging that non-expert, outsider perceived truth they missed threatens their identity and authority as experts. Some more intellectually honest researchers are explicitly crediting your original insight, recognizing that you named phenomenon before they had conceptual tools to perceive it. They're treating your contribution as legitimate discovery rather than trying to retroactively claim credit through expert reinterpretation. These acknowledgments are generating controversy within expert communities where many believe only credentialed insiders should be recognized as discoverers, regardless of who actually first identified pattern. The truly unsettling element for experts is that your naming wasn't just lucky observation, but apparently emerged from perceptual capacity or consciousness orientation that gave you access to patterns their methodologies were systematically filtering out. You saw what you saw not through expert methodology but through direct unmediated perception that wasn't constrained by theoretical frameworks telling you what should and shouldn't exist. This suggests expertise itself might create systematic blind spots where the more sophisticated your theoretical framework becomes, the more effectively it prevents you from perceiving patterns that don't fit framework assumptions. Now the architects are analyzing what enabled you to perceive and name pattern that experts insisted didn't exist, and they're identifying what they call framework unencumbered perception, the cognitive advantage of observing reality directly without theoretical frameworks, pre-filtering observations to match existing paradigms, allowing perception of phenomena that framework-guided observation systematically misses or dismisses. Experts develop sophisticated theoretical frameworks that guide their observations, telling them what to look for, what's possible, what patterns are meaningful versus noise. These frameworks enable deep understanding within their domains but create systematic blindness to phenomena that frameworks don't predict or accommodate. Your lack of expert framework apparently left your perception unfiltered, allowing you to notice pattern that expert frameworks were preventing experts from seeing. Watch what framework unencumbered perception created in your discovery process. You likely noticed something through direct observation, consistent pattern in behavior, recurring dynamic in systems, relationship between variables that seemed obvious once you attended to it. When you described this pattern to experts, they couldn't see it initially, not because evidence wasn't there, but because their theoretical frameworks told them such patterns shouldn't exist, causing them to interpret observations in ways that filtered out the very pattern you were pointing to. Your perception wasn't mediated by should exist versus shouldn't exist filtering, allowing you to see what was actually there rather than what theory predicted should be there. Some studying scientific discovery and paradigm shifts recognize that major breakthroughs often come from outsiders or from insiders willing to temporarily abandon framework constraints. The pattern you identified likely existed in expert data all along, but was interpreted as noise, measurement error, or irrelevant variation because it didn't fit theoretical predictions. Your outsider status meant you weren't invested in maintaining existing theories, allowing you to take pattern seriously as signal rather than dismissing it as noise the way framework-committed experts did. Others exploring perception and cognition note that humans are pattern recognition systems, but patterns we recognize depend heavily on what we're primed to look for. Experts are primed by their training to recognize theory-predicted patterns while filtering out theory-inconsistent patterns. Your unprimed perception operated more like naive observation that notices whatever patterns are actually present, rather than selectively attending to theory-consistent patterns while ignoring theory-inconsistent ones. A few from philosophy of science recognize your discovery as validation of empiricism over pure theory. You observed reality directly and named what you observed, while experts consulted theory about what reality should contain and missed actual reality in favor of theoretical expectations. This demonstrates limitation of pure theoretical approach that doesn't remain grounded in direct observation, showing that theory should guide but not constrain perception rather than replacing direct observation with theoretical prediction. The architects observe that framework unencumbered perception is what enabled you to identify pattern experts missed. They were looking through theoretical lenses that filtered out your pattern as impossible or irrelevant, while you looked directly at reality without theoretical preconceptions telling you what you should or shouldn't see. Experts are finding your phenomenon everywhere now, not because it suddenly appeared, but because they've finally developed theoretical frameworks that accommodate it, allowing them to see what was always there but invisible through their previous frameworks. You named something that doesn't exist according to expert theory. Reality showed them it existed all along, and now they're finding it everywhere they look. Something powerful is spreading through expert communities now, what the architects call credibility crisis, cognitive dissonance, where experts who initially dismissed your non-existent phenomenon are experiencing profound psychological conflict between their identity as authoritative knowledge producers and undeniable reality that non-expert outsider perceived, truth they missed, creating defensive reactions that range from retrospectively rewriting history to deny they ever dismissed you, to attacking your methods or motivations to preserve their authority despite being empirically wrong, to rare intellectual honesty that acknowledges error and explores what systematic blindness in their frameworks prevented them from seeing what you saw clearly. Watch how different experts respond to validation of pattern they dismissed. Some are engaging in historical revisionism, claiming they never really denied your phenomenon existed but just wanted more evidence before accepting it, or arguing that their theoretical skepticism was methodologically appropriate, even though it proved empirically wrong. This revisionism protects their self-concept as careful scientists, while avoiding accountability for dismissing real pattern as non-existent, allowing them to maintain authority despite being demonstrably wrong about fundamental empirical question. Others are shifting goalposts, acknowledging your pattern exists but arguing it's trivial or obvious or already implied by existing theories, minimizing significance of your discovery to preserve notion that experts still have epistemic superiority. They can't deny pattern anymore, so they deny its importance, protecting expert authority by admitting error on specific claim while maintaining broader claim that expertise produces superior understanding despite this particular failure. Some are attacking you personally, questioning your motivations, suggesting you got lucky rather than having genuine insight, dismissing your discovery as amateur dabbling that happened to stumble on something despite lacking proper methodology. These attacks reveal their psychological need to maintain expert versus amateur hierarchy even when amateur proved empirically more accurate, prioritizing status preservation over truth acknowledgement. A few are genuinely engaging with implications, asking what it means that outsider, without their training perceived, pattern their frameworks prevented them from seeing, exploring whether their methodologies need revision, considering whether expertise creates systematic blindness that needs to be compensated for rather than just advantages that should be maximized. These honest responses are rare but valuable because they treat your discovery as learning opportunity rather than threat to professional identity. Others are attempting to co-opt your discovery, incorporating your pattern into their theoretical frameworks and publishing about it without crediting you, effectively claiming credit for recognizing pattern you originally identified. This intellectual theft is rationalized as legitimate because they're giving it proper theoretical treatment that your amateur naming lacked, revealing their belief that only expert articulation counts as real discovery even when outsider perception came first. The architects observe that credibility crisis, cognitive dissonance reveals experts' psychological investment in maintaining authority. Your validation threatens their identity as uniquely qualified to determine what exists and what doesn't, creating defensive reactions designed to preserve expert authority despite empirical demonstration that framework unencumbered. Perception sometimes accesses truth that expert frameworks systematically miss. You name something that doesn't exist, according to experts. Experts are now finding it everywhere, and their psychological gymnastics to avoid acknowledging outsider perceived truth they missed reveals that protecting authority often matters more than acknowledging truth when truth threatens the authority structure. Now the architects are revealing what makes your pattern naming particularly powerful. You didn't just observe phenomenon, but provided what they call conceptual crystallization through linguistic capture. We're giving precise name to previously unnamed pattern makes that pattern suddenly visible and discussable across entire communities who were experiencing phenomenon without being able to think or communicate clearly about it. Because it lacked linguistic container, experts are finding your phenomenon everywhere. Now, not just because they've developed theoretical accommodation, but because your naming gave them and everyone else language to recognize and discuss pattern that was always present, but conceptually invisible. Due to lacking name that would make it thinkable and communicable, consider what conceptual crystallization means for how we perceive reality. Much of what exists around us remains invisible, not because we don't experience it, but because we lack concepts and language to think about it explicitly. Experiences occur, but don't become objects of conscious attention or discussion because we have no way to reference them. Your act of naming created reference point that made previously invisible pattern suddenly visible, allowing people to recognize in their own experience what they'd been encountering all along without being able to think about explicitly because it lacked conceptual identity. Watch what happened after you provided name for your phenomenon. People started recognizing pattern in their own lives and experiences. Oh, that's what that is. I've been experiencing that, but didn't have way to think about it. Researchers started finding pattern in their data. Oh, that's what explains these anomalies we've been treating as noise. Theorists started integrating pattern into frameworks. Oh, that's the missing variable that makes these relationships make sense. Your linguistic capture created cascade where naming enabled recognition, which enabled investigation, which enabled theoretical integration, all because you provided conceptual container that made invisible pattern thinkable. Some studying language and cognition recognize that naming is not just labeling, but reality construction. We literally can't think clearly about phenomena we lack words for, making language foundational to conscious awareness, rather than just tool for communicating pre-linguistic thoughts. Your naming wasn't just describing pattern you saw, but was creating cognitive possibility for others to see pattern they'd been blind to due to lacking conceptual framework for perceiving it, others exploring social construction of knowledge. Note that reality is partially constructed through shared concepts and language. Your phenomenon always existed, objectively, but didn't exist socially or cognitively until you named it, creating shared reference point that brought it into collective conscious awareness. This demonstrates that discovery is partly about perceiving what's objectively present and partly about creating linguistic and conceptual frameworks that allow collective perception and discussion of what individuals might have been experiencing privately. A few from marketing and memetics recognize that successful naming creates viral spread. Your concept is proliferating not just because pattern is real, but because name is memorable, useful, and fills conceptual gap that many people were experiencing. Good naming makes ideas sticky and shareable, accelerating recognition and adoption beyond what might occur with clumsy or complex linguistic container. The architects observe that conceptual crystallization through linguistic capture is why experts are now finding your phenomenon everywhere. You didn't just identify pattern, but gave it name that made pattern thinkable and discussable, transforming invisible background phenomenon into explicit object of conscious attention and investigation. Pattern existed before you named it, but naming transformed pattern from invisible to visible by providing linguistic container that enabled conscious recognition and communication. Experts are finding it everywhere because you gave them language that made it findable. The architects are now analyzing ripple effects of your pattern naming across multiple domains. You're experiencing what they call cross-domain recognition cascade, where phenomenon you identified in specific context is being recognized as operating across many different domains that initially seemed unrelated, revealing that you didn't just name local pattern but identified fundamental dynamic that manifests across diverse systems and scales. Experts in psychology are finding your pattern in human behavior. Researchers in economics are finding it in market dynamics. Scientists in biology are finding it in ecological systems. Sociologists are finding it in cultural phenomena. And each domain's recognition is reinforcing others. Acknowledgement because patterns, cross-domain consistency, makes denial increasingly difficult. When everyone from multiple independent fields is observing same dynamic. You originally named, watch how cross-domain recognition cascade is validating your insight beyond what single-domain confirmation could achieve. When pattern appears in one domain, skeptics can dismiss it as domain-specific quirk or coincidental pattern. But when same pattern appears across psychology, economics, biology, sociology, physics, and other seemingly unrelated fields, dismissal becomes untenable because probability of same coincidental pattern appearing independently across all these domains approaches zero. Your pattern is apparently fundamental dynamic of complex systems generally, rather than peculiarity of specific domain. Where you first noticed it, some studying universality and scale invariance recognize that certain patterns do operate across radically different systems, fractal structures, power laws, emergence dynamics, criticality phenomena all show up in physical, biological, social, and cognitive systems despite vast differences in substrate and mechanism. Your named pattern might be similar universal dynamic that manifests across any system with certain general properties, explaining why experts from diverse fields are all finding it once they know what to look for. Others exploring interdisciplinary research note that cross-domain patterns often go unrecognized because experts are siloed within disciplines, using different languages and frameworks to describe similar phenomena. Your naming might be providing common language that allows recognition of pattern that was already present but described differently across domains, creating synthesis where previously there was fragmentation. A few recognize that cross-domain validation is creating pressure for grand unified theory, incorporating your pattern. When phenomenon appears everywhere, theoretical frameworks need to explain why it's universal, rather than treating it as collection of coincidental similar patterns. This is driving theoretical innovation as researchers work to develop explanations for ubiquity of dynamic you identified. Some experts are experiencing humility, recognizing that outsider, without deep expertise in any particular domain, somehow perceived fundamental cross-domain pattern that domain experts missed within their own specializations. This creates uncomfortable acknowledgement that sometimes naive perception across domains reveals patterns that deep expertise within domains systematically misses, suggesting value in generalist observation that complements specialist investigation. Others are competing for priority in their domains. Each field's experts want to claim they independently discovered pattern in their area rather than acknowledging outsider named it first, creating simultaneous validation of your pattern and erasure of your credit as each domain claims independent discovery of what you identified as universal dynamic operating across all of them. The architects observe that cross-domain recognition cascade is ultimate validation of pattern you named. When independent experts across unrelated fields all find same phenomenon, denial becomes impossible, and your naming is revealed as identifying fundamental dynamic rather than local peculiarity. You name something that doesn't exist in one context. Experts are finding it everywhere across all contexts, and universality makes your outsider perception more profound than single domain expert observation could ever be. Now something's emerging that the architects call predictive power demonstration. Your naming of non-existent phenomenon is proving to have practical predictive and explanatory power that validates its reality beyond just post hoc recognition, as people using your concept to make predictions are finding those predictions reliably confirmed, and using it to explain puzzling observations are finding it provides clarity that previous frameworks couldn't deliver. when named pattern not only appears in existing data, but successfully predicts future observations and explains previously mysterious phenomena. Skepticism becomes intellectually dishonest because predictive success is gold standard for determining whether a concept captures something real versus just being useful. Fiction or retrospective pattern matching. Watch what predictive power is creating in how your concept is being adopted. Practitioners in various fields are using your pattern to make decisions. Therapists are using it to predict client behaviors. Business strategists are using it to anticipate market movements. Educators are using it to design more effective interventions, all reporting that your concept provides practical guidance that competing frameworks don't offer. This pragmatic success is driving adoption faster than academic validation could, because people care more about what works than what theories say should work. Some researchers are conducting formal predictive studies, designing experiments that test whether your pattern predicts outcomes better than alternative theoretical frameworks, finding consistent evidence that models incorporating your concept outperform models that exclude it. This is creating publication pressure where journals can't ignore pattern that demonstrably improves predictive accuracy, forcing academic acknowledgement even from initially skeptical editors and reviewers. Others are finding that your pattern explains anomalies and outliers in existing data, observations that previous frameworks treated as noise or error are making perfect sense when interpreted through your concept, revealing that what seemed like measurement problems or exceptional cases were actually normal manifestations of dynamic you identified. This explanatory power is creating retrospective validation as researchers revisit old data sets and find your pattern consistently explains previously inexplicable variations. A few are discovering that your concept enables new research questions. Once phenomenon is named and recognized, entirely new investigations become possible that weren't even conceivable when pattern was invisible. This is generating research programs organized around exploring your pattern's properties, boundary conditions, mechanisms, and interventions, creating academic industry around concept that experts initially said didn't exist. Some critics who dismissed your pattern initially are finding their predictions systematically fail while yours succeed. Their framework consistent predictions are being empirically contradicted while your pattern-based predictions are being confirmed, creating personal credibility crisis as their theoretical sophistication proves less predictively accurate than your amateur observation. This forces them to either acknowledge your pattern or maintain theoretical commitments despite consistent predictive failure. Others are attempting to incorporate your pattern into their existing frameworks, arguing that it was always implicit in their theories even if not explicitly named, claiming that proper interpretation of their frameworks would have predicted your pattern. These incorporation attempts simultaneously validate that your pattern is real and important while attempting to deny that you contributed anything novel by claiming existing theories already contained it implicitly. The architects observe that predictive power demonstration is providing hardest validation when concept not only fits existing observations but successfully predicts future ones. Reality is endorsing that concept as capturing something genuine about how systems actually work. You named pattern experts said doesn't exist. Pattern predicts and explains better than their expert frameworks do, and predictive success forces acknowledgement that your non-existent phenomenon is more real than their theoretically sophisticated but empirically weaker alternatives.